What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Smoke and Mirrors Podcast. I'm Nick, and this is
Zach.
And today we also have Patrick with us. Today we're going to get into some talks about Second Amendment and Constitution stuff, and just going to see where that takes us. And I just want to let everyone know that we started off not knowing anything about audio recording and stuff like that, and we are learning as we go, guys. We wanted y'all to see that from beginning to, all the way until it gets to being much better. We understand that there are things we got to fix, like our plosives and stuff like that.
Yeah, some of them are shit.
Some of them, trust me, we do understand, but we wanted y'all to see the progress that we have made over time. And so that's why we've been doing it before we were 100% ready. Right now we are dealing with two microphones, and one of them is honestly just a karaoke mic, so we're working on it, guys. We have more on the way. We just got our new interface with 8 mic inputs, so that way we'll be able to include other people easily, and the audio will be much better for them. We have been just kind of trading a mic whenever we have had others on with us, like Bethany. And tonight we're going to have to do the same thing with Patrick. So if y'all don't mind, just work with us. We are doing our best to get the audio better, and I hope that you guys can see it from episode to episode. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and get into today's topic, which is the Second Amendment and the Constitution.
Oh,
and,
man,
Zach,
you're killing me, bro.
Here we go.
We missed our plug, dude. Go to Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. Follow, like us. Let it, throw us some love. We're trying to build the channel, so if you like us, send us out to everybody else, too.
And we are getting to video, guys. Don't worry, that's coming. It's kind of a one step at a time thing that we're dealing with here. So.
Yeah, but we're ugly sons of bitches, so I don't know.
Yep, we'll see how that goes. And we want to be able to go live so we can answer anybody's questions, so y'all can get to know us better and stuff like that too. So that's why we really need those subscribes, because they won't let you go on live unless you get to a certain amount on certain platforms, like YouTube, for instance. From what I can tell, it takes 50 subscribers before you can go live. So we got that going on too. But all right, Zach, well, shoot.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were actually just chilling out, and this conversation kind of came up. So, cool thing about podcasts is we got to try to make stuff happen when it happens. So, one of the things though is like, all right, we're gonna have a conversation about a pretty volatile subject in our country right now, which is gun rights, gun control, these things that we're on a regular, we're getting hounded on every side of the aisle, right? There's the pro, the con, the pro, the con, and the back and forth. And before we get started, one of the things I think that is extremely important and overlooked, dude, by a lot of people, like when we say a statement like the Second Amendment, I'm going to tell you right now, dude, that there may be a few. If we had the kids, the teenagers in the room right now, I doubt they would even have an understanding of that, except for listening to our conversations and kind of having that background.
Yeah.
But the Second Amendment, for those of you who don't know, I looked it up, and I'm just going to read it's so small. It's like literally 2 sentences, maybe one full sentence. It's just a pretty long one.
Right.
So, the Second Amendment is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms is capitalized, shall not be infringed. That's it. That is the entire Second Amendment. There doesn't seem, in my eyes, to be a lot of gray area in this single sentence. That was not only an amendment to the original Constitution, it was the second amendment passed, which means all the founding fathers just and those of you who know constitutional law out there, throw your comments, fucking whatever you got to do. Let everybody know that whether I'm right or not, right? I have a basic understanding. I don't know a lot, right? But what I do know is in constitutional, you can make amendments to the Constitution, and we have throughout time.
Yep.
And all the way up until like the 70s and stuff, we've still made amendments to the Constitution, right? But
Yeah.
when you talk about Constitution and the meaning of the Founding Fathers, part of them beginning it was to send it to every single state and have every single state make amendments to it or agree to the terms of it, so that as the country grew, everybody was still understanding that we were choosing to govern the same under this law and body. Hence why when slavery was abolished by Lincoln, right?
Yep.
Lincoln abolished slavery in the country because he did not acknowledge the South as being any different than the North. So therefore, anything that happened there wasn't a war. In the North, it's not a war because it could not have been, right?
Right.
There is no other country you're fighting. You're fighting yourselves. So it was civil.
Yep.
It was a civil action.
It was
that
a civil war, yeah.
That caused, quote unquote, civil war. So that being said, all I'm trying to say is, if your argument to the Constitution is this is an amendment to the Constitution, so it wasn't the site of the forefathers, you're extremely wrong. It was signed also by the forefathers. It was in their era, in their time period. It was written specifically in very short format as to what this means, which means that to bear arms in the United States is a right of our governing body. You cannot take away a right
Yeah.
from an American. Every governance has
It's
to
an
agree to abide by
inalienable
this
right.
rule. So now, we're going to talk a little more about the Second Amendment. Everybody should be a little more educated on what it is. And you can maybe tell already now, the funny part is I'm less passionate about this subject than Nick.
But you are definitely, you're knowledgeable about it. For
Well,
someone,
I read the Constitution, just so the background of me, I read the Constitution probably twice a year.
Yep.
And I have for a long time. And that's because I got to revisit sometimes because some of the stuff that we hear and we talk about, like you hear the media express the Second Amendment a certain kind of way, and then you read it for yourself, and it's like, well, I don't know how we can even talk about all of this other stuff that you guys are talking about if it's as clear as this. This is black and white. They don't
Right.
actually, most of the other fucking parts of the Constitution are not even as clear as this, and all they're saying is Congress has the power to do this.
So I'm going to say this. This is a thing that came to mind when it came down to the idea of even making the podcast, y'all. And that was that we have different voting ways between these friendships and stuff like that. And we noticed that there's a lot of argument in today's world and where people just don't know how to communicate with each other. And it kind of shocks us because we don't look at things the same way, yet we get along and we don't like be just fighting with each other. We just have a talk and, you know, we find middle ground, or, you know, we're just like, okay, well, we just disagree on this, whatever. So just to put it in perspective, you know, because especially Republicans, because we're hardcore on fucking guns and we think that Democrats are just out to take them, all of them and everything. And I've come to light and realizing in the recent years that that's not necessarily true by any means. And it really, you have to talk to people and you have to learn to have a conversation with them before you're going to actually realize this. And you're going to be like, wait a minute, why am I being played with? So, I mean, just to put it in perspective on this, y'all, like a whole lot of people that were Trump supporters, me being one of them. Patrick, were you?
And me too.
Okay. Well, like we were Trump supporters, and hold on. And like, you know, I know from being on that side that a whole lot of Trump supporters will sit here and just assume anybody that would ever fucking vote for Biden or vote for the Democrats just doesn't know anything about like what they're looking at and what they're talking about. And this is one of the things that's always, for lack of a better word, but I guess it's a great word, honestly, is mesmerized me about Zach. And that's the fact that he can explain himself. Instead of arguing with you and yelling at you and getting mad at you, he will have a conversation with you and you'll realize that, holy crap, a whole bunch of us are a hell of a lot more alike than we realize. And if more people would just have the conversation and talk to each other, they'd realize that. And then maybe we can get somewhere with this, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, for me, it's I don't know. I think you're very similar, and so is Patrick. I mean, we've had some real open-minded conversations amongst us.
Yep.
Right. And I think that's really where it stems from. Is like, okay, and we've talked about this before. If when you're saying Trump supporter, you're not. You're kind of saying that, but what you're saying is, I voted for Trump the first term. I didn't think my options were very good, but why not give him a shot?
Did you really?
I did.
Holy crap! I didn't know that. I did not know that.
I gave him a shot. I didn't. There were some things that happened during COVID, and I'll be honest with you. I took a big break from media, period, where I didn't pay attention to any media.
That's
But
what
if-
I've been doing.
But if I
Trying.
watch media, and I might be one of the very few that does this, I don't really just want the opinion from one source, because everybody knows if you watch CNN or MSNBC, you're going to get a certain take on the same situation that Fox will give a completely different take of. So why, as an educated person, would you not want to know both takes?
Well, of course you would want to. That's doing your research.
Well,
That's
no,
actually
because
looking
then you
into
find out
things.
this, right? This is what I find. I find out there's truth. There's truth in the middle of both of them, right? Neither one is right. They're both wrong and lying to us. They're
Very true.
They're not lying. I shouldn't say lying because that's maybe the wrong way. They're biased. If you talk to me from a perspective of I'm a Trump fan, everything I say about anything other than Trump being the fucking next coming of Jesus, you're not happy with, and I'm an idiot for. So you're not open-minded is what I'm trying to get to,
Not
right?
me. I
No,
mean,
no,
I'm
no,
not
no.
like
You're
that.
not. What I'm saying is when we say, like, you know, you're a Trump supporter, what you were trying to say is like that side of like that radical
I'm just saying
port.
from
and
that
you know
side
people
of
that
those
are that
people
way.
that are like
But wait a
that,
minute, you
like,
know
I
people
know.
because you hung out with them because they
Yes.
are like-minded in certain ways, right?
Yes.
But they were complete diehards on this one thing, and it was like, yeah, but you know what? When I went to vote last time, when there is no president in the election, I voted Kemp into office because Kemp is a good governor and he's managing the state that I live in the right way, not
Yep.
because he's Republican.
And he
I
gave
don't
us
vote based on your party, and I have an argument for each. But however, we get two choices when we vote. We
Right.
don't get the choice I wanted. Didn't even get close to this shit. Or I know they're not getting.
Dude, I
there.
wanted Ron Paul as president, dude, back when he ran. Dude, I wanted him president so fucking bad. But, of course, because he's libertarian,
He gets 8% of the vote. So
Ain't
you
getting
really,
shit.
your choice was throw your vote in the trash or vote for one of the two parties that run the country. So you have to make that decision every time. So it's like, to me, I can never say I'm a Republican or a Democrat because I
No.
don't care. I don't give a fuck about them.
I want
If
what's
you're
best for
good-
the country.
No, if you're good in my state, I'm going to vote for you. If I feel like you're doing me okay and I'm not getting a lot of bullshit laws and fucking all this stuff. Look at
Yep.
this state versus look at what's happening in Florida. Okay? We
Yeah, I
talk
know.
about Ron
Hold on.
DeSantis
Like-
being wait. I got to say it cuz it's on my head. I got to say it. You talk about how Ron DeSantis is the next one and he's going to be the president and all this shit, right?
I don't
Now,
like him.
No, but hear me out. It's not even that to me, right? If you look at what's happening in Georgia, the same rules that all these other states are, they're having transgender fights and all this crazy shit going on to keep
Yeah.
baby. You heard about this shit in Georgia? No,
What, the fights against the
Yeah.
police departments?
no.
No.
Half of the shit that we've heard about the rest of the country in these fucking states where they're like,
Oh, no, we're
you
not.
can't
we
be
don't deal with all
transgender
this
in
crap.
school, and you can't. We don't have it here.
We don't have that here. No.
So what the fuck are we talking about here?
but
You're
I,
a great governor, except your entire state is in uproar about every decision that you make. Or you're in a state where nobody knows shit about what's happening because nothing big is happening. We're
yeah.
quiet and we're doing what we need to do.
To
There's
get-
a few
yep.
things in this state for sure I would love to see changed. I'm not gonna fucking sugarcoat it. There's some laws in this state that are kind of just a little bit too far. But this state overall has always been Republican.
Yeah.
It is a heavy Republican state, so I'm quote unquote a Democrat, but I'm not really, right? And that's where we started. We started
you're
this
really
conversation.
More libertarian,
I'm in
honestly.
the
I
middle.
feel like you're in the middle. You're
I'm
more
trying to
middle.
find what's best for the country and myself and what lines up with my laws. And I think a lot of
Yep.
people would be better off if they did form
Well-
their own opinion, opposed to just taking the one from Fox or taking the one from MSNBC or
Yes.
CNN or wherever the
Taking
fuck
it
you
from-
got your news.
Or going somewhere else that's not so mainstream and just seeing what they got.
I mean, if you watch Anchorman, dude, the Anchorman makes a complete spectacle of what the news is.
Yep.
And we all laugh at that like it's a joke, but it's really the truth of what the news actually is. It's entertainment for us.
So, getting back to what what this episode's about, and that's Second Amendment of the Constitution, which we're staying on. But getting back to closer.
Well,
to
I
the
was
Second
trying to
Amendment.
bring Florida into it.
Yep.
This is where we started.
Let me say this
talking
about Florida. We also have DeSantis, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna make this clear even right here on this podcast because it's what the truth is. Okay, everyone wants to throw hate at Kemp and everything, but you know what Georgia has? We have real constitutional carry. Okay, Florida, what you just got was what they're calling constitutional carry, but it is just permanentless carry. You cannot open carry. If you get caught printing, you're going to get screwed with. If you have your gun be visible because your shirt came up and got hung on the darn, you bent over or something like that, you're going to get in trouble for that still.
Unless you have a fishing pole in your back pocket.
Yeah, unless you have a fishing pole in your back pocket.
Open carry as long as you're.
So it's like
in the state of Florida,
they're pushing something here, and I don't like it because it's fake, and I don't like fake, and I'm going to call out fake when I see it. Now, I will say it was a step. This bill getting passed down there was a step in the right direction, but it just it missed the finish line. But with that said,
dude, they were wait, because this is one thing. I mean, I'm from Florida. I lived there for half my life, right?
Well, not as long as you did, but yeah.
But I'm saying they were borderline, and this happened after I moved, right? But they were starting to borderline on the extremism that happens in New York. You see what I'm saying? The extremism going on in New York with gun control and other shit, right? They were borderline hitting that plateau in Florida. So for them to come this far, that's a major step, I think, in the right direction. You can't go from having nothing, and you also have to understand that Florida's different than Georgia too, right? Because in Florida, it's all about people visiting with their families for vacation. So do you want to have a bunch of families from China and other countries and shit even going to Orlando for Disney World, shit like that, where they have to feel like, holy shit, I came to America, everybody has a gun? Because if you come from Europe and shit, where you don't see anybody with any guns, and then you come to this country, and everywhere you look, there's people packing heat. Normal people, fucking cars driving down the road, got shotguns in the back windows and shit, and people are like, it's terrifying. It may deter some of those people from visiting and giving us their money.
Yeah, but there's still even a large population of our own citizens that think it's crazy to be seeing people out with guns and stuff.
Well, I mean, and that's where that fear comes from, right? So you marry the two. So those extremists who are in fear of their own life, those are the same people who grab their purse when they see a guy walking down the street. You know what I'm saying? At night, they are living their life in that paranoia state. Now, what that happens from, nobody knows. Could be past experience, whatever. But the extremes, and this is something that me and Nick have really got deep on, is that there's extremes to both of these parties, and we hear so much about the far left and the far right, and it's 99% of America probably sits somewhere closer to the middle of that. They just want to have their rights, and they don't want to they don't want you messing with them.
Right?
Stop talking about taking my guns. You can't take the fucking guns. How about you start talking about the thing you can control? We pay billions of dollars a year for tax money to go into our school system, and then we don't train and teach and communicate with children what's happening in the world and how they're responsible to change these things.
Well, we don't teach them about them. So, I mean, that's one of the big issues right now. We used to teach this, and now we're not teaching it anymore.
Yes, it was called a civics class, and it was taught, to my knowledge, as far back as the 60s.
Right, because they cared about politics in the 60s. It was very important that you had good government, because government controlled a lot of the regulations, the things that can and can't be done, the other stuff that statesmen were about. And we've started to get further and further away from having statesmen, and it just be about who's got the most power and greed, because it's ridiculous to me that you can have a Senate or a House of Representatives, and I don't care which side we're talking. You can say Republican, you can say Democrat, because both do the same shit. They sugarcoat them, and they sell them to us in a different package, but it's the same exact thing. One person says, don't raise taxes, and at the same time, they're going to raise spending. So there's no difference between the two, because guess what happens? At some point, that guy's out of office, and spending is through the roof, and the tax dollars don't line up to the spending, so you're creating debt. So somebody's either creating debt, or somebody is trying to take the money back from us to get to pay for the shit that they decided for us is important. And it's like, that's fine, but why should I be paying any of you $250,000 a year for the rest of your life
Right.
to not even to talk about shit that is not your choice? I think personally, we read the Second Amendment. There's not a lot to talk about in gun control.
It's pretty blatant.
So why can't we start talking about the social control that's necessary for having fucking our children decide that bringing their parents or even going out until they're in their 20s and buying up these assault rifles and automatic weapons, right? And their way of solving their problem, their personal problem, is to walk into an environment and fucking spray it up with bullets, kill as many people as they can. For what purpose?
I don't know. Let me ask this. So, Patrick, what's your thoughts? What do you think that we should do about the school shootings? What do you think? Like, in your opinion, and that's, we all got our own opinions. What's your opinion of what the best way to handle that is?
I think in some schools they already have teachers with firearms, but personally, I think that our best option for defending schools from mass shootings like this is employing our veterans to defend our children.
What does that mean? Does that mean that
Well,
what does that mean? What does that look like, I guess I'm saying? Not what does it mean, because when you say that, it paints a picture in a lot of people's heads, and especially in some of the people that we just spoke about on the extreme sides, right?
Yeah.
That you mean to have veterans who are armed patrolling our schools? Because as a parent, I'm scared to have I don't want my children to have to go to school in fear of their life or fear that.
No, their sole purpose
would be to
defend
conceal
the
that.
children in the event of one of these mass shootings taking places.
So that's what I'm saying, though. Is they're just undercover until that happens, or are they walking around showing force? You see what I'm trying to get to? It's the same reason they don't want the guns walking around at Disney World on somebody's hip that's not a police officer, right? Because they don't want to scare the faint of heart in that situation. So if you put our most vulnerable, which is children, in a school full of people walking around with guns, it's no difference to me. I don't want my kid also to have to go through a metal detector to get into class either, right? I don't think that should be necessary. They shouldn't have to fear that some major traumatic. They should feel safe. You should feel safe at school.
So how do we solve it if we don't do those things? Because the argument on the Republican side is always going to be like they're just. I already know what it is. Is that if there's no other way, like we guard everything, we guard all of our politicians, our president, all these people are guarded with guns. Anybody that's important in this world, anybody that's even a celebrity, they're all guarded by security guards with guns. So it's like, why do they not look at themselves as being imprisoned? But when you talk about it with using those tactics, which seem to work, right?
0.001% of America uses their firearm for bad purposes. 0.001% of the U.S. population uses their firearms for an incorrect, unlawful means.
But a whole big percentage, and I don't know the exact amount. I just know I just don't remember what the exact amount is. Most mass shootings, let's just leave it at that. Most, okay, over 50% of them happen in so-called, or not so-called, but that's what they are, gun-free zones where you're literally not allowed to carry unless you're an officer. That's where they happen at. And it's like, it seems to be like that's the main target. And I personally feel like in my heart that that's the main target because they know that everybody in those areas are sitting ducks.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just stupid anyway, right? What you're doing is you're saying, here is a zone that is unsafe.
Yeah.
Right? We can't guarantee your safety in this area at all. That's what you're saying. As a matter of fact, let's make that in the colleges and shit where all the kids are fucking vulnerable as shit anyway. They're not that smart. They're just out of their parents' house. They don't really have a lot of street information.
They're drunk.
And then within a few blocks of that school, there's people who are doing drugs or are menaces to society, and I'll rob them and shit. That doesn't make any sense. What I'm saying is this. Here's what my thought would be, and it's a longer drawn out process than anyone really wants to get into. I'm not interested in taking any guns away. I think that's stupid. But I do know that my son was in Boy Scouts, right? And we came up in Boy Scouts at like 7 years old, 6, 7,
Yeah,
8.
I was too. I
They
remember that.
they have a program in which they train these kids to use bow and arrow. They train them to use knives properly, and you can't have a knife in your possession without supervision in any way, shape, or form without going through the safety process and getting your badge for being able to prove that you can do that.
Totally. I was in there too.
So how come our government says in the document that we govern by that it's a right to own fucking protect yourself in America, whether that be a firearm or some type of arms, right? That we wouldn't invest any amount of time in teaching our children safety of this equipment, so that people are no longer afraid of a tool that we have at our disposal, right? And equally, at the same token, take the ownership that as a government, it's our responsibility to stop our kids from thinking that the way to solve their problem is to take out a fucking machine gun and
Right.
shoot up a school full of innocent people because they're mad. That is the epitome of the fucking society in which we
So-
started giving out trophies to people for not doing shit.
So
Everybody thinks they're entitled to win or have something. And you're not entitled to shit but what you create in this world. Nothing else. You're not entitled to nothing. Nobody owes you shit.
So just because I'm trying to make sure that I follow you. Okay, I think I'm right, but I don't know. That's what I'm asking. When it comes down to what you think the best thing to do for right now with the school shooting problem, which we understand that there is a problem with that. That's why we're talking about this. Is not locking it down with metal detectors, not doing the vet thing quite yet. I mean, obviously, but we need to get back to an educational, because we didn't need any of them things in the past, but yet the education on the topic was there.
Well, I mean, I think that part of the problem with weapons and guns is that, okay, if you live in a household in which your parents are 100% against guns, they don't have them, they don't fucking know people who have them, you don't ever get exposure to a gun, right?
Yeah, that was my house.
Okay, so then you go to your buddy's house down the road, and goddamn it, it's Nick's house. And Nick is a gun enthusiast. He loves guns, not because of the weapon power that they have. It's because it's something that he has learned how to operate correctly. He's really good shooter. He's trained other shooters, right? So you have a reason and an understanding of gun. Now, does that mean that I go to Nick's house and he's got 50 guns laying all around where the kids can get? No, absolutely not. Actually, it means the opposite.
What
you
is my
couldn't
level?
even tell he had a gun except the one that's strapped to him if you didn't really know him and start to have a conversation with him. I know him, and I know well enough to know that both of these two gentlemen probably have a pretty good arsenal, right? But they use the arsenal for their own, like, target practice and training in case something was to happen.
Or just fun, dude. I
know,
just enjoy them.
Or like you right, just like anything else, it's a hobby, right? So in that aspect, what I'm saying is this: but you also, because you know so much about weapons, you also equally know how important it is to control your weapon, to clean your weapon, to make sure your weapon's not available for anyone who's not supposed to have it.
How many times have you seen me? We've known each other for going on 2 years. How many times have you seen someone ask me if I'd show them my gun, and I was like, no, right now is not the time.
No, I mean 100%.
Like I've always been that way, because I'm like, gun safety is the first and foremost, and if we could just teach people that.
But see, and this is the thing that my biggest argument is that if it is a right in America to allow people to have guns, then why would we not make sure that everyone understands what it is, what the repercussions is? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if I'm 15 years old and I've never seen a gun before, right? I'm a boy. Boys play cop and robber and shit like that. Now, if you didn't even give me a plastic gun to play with, I've had no exposure to weapons whatsoever. And then I go to Billy's house, and I'm 15 years old, and he shows me a gun because he thinks it's cool. He stole it from his brother's room. Let's play with it. We have no idea what this thing is. We've never fired a fucking weapon. We've never
We
heard
don't
a
know how
weapon.
deadly it is because we've never been taught about
We've
it.
been told to be afraid of it, right? So we don't know how to hold it. We don't know whether the safety's on. We don't know if it's loaded. We don't know how to fucking check any of the above. Now, I'm of a personal opinion, and I did this with my son and my daughter. I fucking went out and got a firearm, and they were under the age of 10, and I took them out with me to shoot. I let them shoot the weapon, and I don't care what other people's stances are. I know for the first shot that they both took, they were scared shitless of that fucking gun
I'm sure they were.
because there's power to it. We all know that. If you've ever fired
It's
a
an
firearm.
explosion in your hands.
Okay,
Like,
so what I'm getting at is this. I much rather preferred my son and daughter to have that experience with me under supervision, with my control of and understanding of the firearm, so that I could teach them a thing or two about it, and what to do in a situation in which their buddy or their friend thought it was cool to bring one with them. It's not cool. This is a tool. It's a deadly weapon. It is something that can kill you on accident.
yes.
If you're not paying attention and you think you're fucking John Wayne and you start slinging a loaded weapon around the damn trigger, you're going to shoot you or someone around you.
And something bad is going to happen.
That's right. So to me, I think that really our obligation should be more so to like teach and train. Now, what does that mean? That means that basically the same thing that Murdoch is saying is we should have a way that if a motherfucker tries to roll up on our goddamn schools, the school is protected within minutes. Before a gunshot even goes off, those people should be dead. And there shouldn't be any questions
Yes.
asked. And if
So-
we want to fucking do something about it, we will. But, I mean, honestly, I think that they should at least be a little bit afraid. Now, we have a ROTC in high school. You can't trust those kids could be drug tested. They could be checked for all kinds. You have to be a specific type of citizen because guess what? In the real world, you do too. You can't be a fucking drug addict or an alcoholic driving your car with a weapon. You can't have drugs on you and have a weapon. Like, those things are already illegal, and those should be, right? So you have to be a good citizen. So as long as they can prove that in high school, they're getting good grades. Just like you're on a football, basketball, baseball team. You could be on the fucking, the ROTC, which would be essentially the militia within the school to protect the school, and then be trained on those things. Why not? Because you can't let everybody, because one of the
That's
school's
what the
defenses is
ROTC should be teaching.
right. Instead, what do? They just teach you to hold the flag
how
up
to
and
flip,
march.
how to flip a fake
Right.
gun around.
Right. And it's not a real gun. Well, if you showed them the real shit and we really put them to training it and target practice and that.
Yes.
But not only that, I think truthfully, probably elementary level, if not middle school for sure, every single American who goes through the public school system should have to take the gun safety class, just like you take a car class and anything else. Driving a car is a goddamn privilege, and we make our kids take driving class.
So we, Patrick and I are next weekend are taking a buddy of ours, son out because he's never been able to hold a gun. He's never been around them. He knows nothing about them. He has spent 4 years in high school going through ROTC. Him and his buddy came in first place in nationals for ROTC. And their recruiting officer said that he really needs to get to help him out to get his hands on some guns and learn the basics and stuff like that. And his dad, he had done some things in this past, nothing violent. It just they were felonies, so he can't carry. And he immediately went to thinking of me and went to thinking of Patrick. Like these guys, they have always stayed up with their training. They've went through all kinds of different training over the years and everything, and he knew who he could come to trust. And so we're having to take him out next weekend and show him some things and go through the basics and teach him the safety rules and just get them through the basics, right? But the thing is that these kids, most of them at least that are in ROTC are going to be in the military, and they're like sitting here. You got recruit officers saying this to parents and stuff, and it's like schools are supposed to be for education, and this country has a constitution. Why is it that we just ignore that just because people want to be afraid of it? Well, they're doing it on purpose, if you ask me. I don't see any other reason, because we used to not do these things. We used to teach gun safety in schools, and ever since we stopped normalizing the fact that this is the second constitutional right we have, it's like we're just ignoring it, and then we're wondering why crazy things are happening and deaths are happening when honestly they could be avoided with just a little bit of training. Me coming up through my life, right, in a house with no guns, like there was no guns. I've never shot one until I became an adult. Nothing. I personally got into it due to a father-in-law of a girl I dated, not father-in-law, but the dad of a girl I dated and everything. And he took me out, and I just enjoyed it. It was just fun, and that's just where my journey started when it came down to the Second Amendment. And then I learned over time what it was really, why we have it, and all that stuff. And it's a hell of it's something. Why we have it is something I hope to God never has to be used. The real reason why we have the Second Amendment in my eyes. I hope to God that never has to happen. Really, I just enjoy guns in general. They're just fun. Like anyone, it's not for everybody. I get that. A lot of people can't stand loud noises and all that stuff, and they're going to get nervous about it. I mean, especially when you're talking about something that can be deadly. But if you learn about them and you know about them, it's not something to be freaked out anywhere near as much as what I think people are today.
Well, I mean, and also equally, like I said, okay, so it also has to pair with the fact that we have to do a better job of helping our youth find a better way to settle their problems and differences with society and with their peers. Because the girl who shot up the school in Tennessee, was it? It was Tennessee.
Yeah.
She was in her 20s, and she went back to her upbringing school to do this. It's like, to me, that's like, there's something wrong, right? There's something that's severely wrong with why a person would go to that extreme, and at the end of it all, in their life anyway, or have their life taken, and that's part of the knowledge that they have when they go into these things, that they're not going to make it out alive, right? So it's also, so it's like, okay, so your last hurrah is to do what? You're not famous. No one has been famous from these mass shootings at all.
Well, they were so brutally hurt that they felt like that was the only way out. I guess. I
yeah,
don't
but
really
how
know.
is that? That isn't the only way out, and that's what I think is fundamentally wrong. Is that we're not teaching our children to cope with being disagreed with. Like, if you're not allowed, like, you don't get. Listen, my mom wouldn't let me go to a party, and I'm gonna kill myself.
That's ridiculous.
Right, because me and you can say that because of where we are, right? But in your 17 years, that feels like a year of it's a death sentence to your social structure, one thing. And it's like, as a parent, we're like, you shut the fuck up and just go to bed. Like, you don't need to go to that party because some shit's going to pop off we don't want you to be a part of, right? Or you're going to do something you shouldn't be doing, whatever it might be, right? That we're trying to protect our children from. The truth of the matter is we're not also teaching them to cope with that situation. So we have kids who literally attempt suicide over something so trivial, right? And it's like, well, no, your coping mechanism is broken, and we need to try to find a better way to resolve those mechanisms. Now, we can blame Grand Theft Auto and all the video games on the free planet that we want to, but that's a horseshit lie.
Yeah, because I've never played any of them games personally. Patrick, you're a gamer. Have you ever played any of these games and actually wanted to do this, like, in real life, like, ever? Because I haven't.
Yes, I've played all kinds of those games, but not a single one of them has made me want to go out in public and start killing people.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, like, okay, so fucking what you're saying is everybody who plays Tony Hawk is out there trying to fucking skateboard and fucking be a goddamn, ride a rail right after playing the game. Is that what
Jump
we're
a
saying?
flight of stairs.
Right. I mean, I don't see kids jumping off buildings trying to fly. Like, okay, so you can recognize that jumping off a building trying to fly is going to hurt. You don't want to do that, but pulling a trigger and robbing somebody's car, that came from the video game. No, bullshit. That came from the society in which those people live. Whether it be low income, whether it be low education, whether it be whatever it is that makes someone believe that that's the way out, we got to try to fix that problem. And instead of that, we're going to fight with each other. All our powers, the people who are the most powerful people in this country, are going to stand in front of each other and say, fuck you, no, do it this way, no, give me your guns, because without guns, this will go away, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, okay, so everybody who's saying, take the guns away, are trying to say, listen, the real problem isn't the gun, but we don't know how to fix the real problem. So the easy reactive solution is to take away the ability from those people to commit so many mass murders, because if you stab everybody, you got to do a lot more stabbing than you do shooting. The blade doesn't stay in there.
Yeah, but it
Pieces
still
of it don't
becomes
break
horrible.
off. There's things that won't necessarily kill you in a stabbing that you get stabbed 20 times, you can't get shot 20 times, right?
Right.
In most cases. So all I was trying to get to on those things was, there's a fundamental flaw in way more than just the gun laws, and they know it. The easy solution is try to take them from everybody. But honestly, the government 100% of the time is trying to minimize the ability for us to not allow them to do the shit that they're doing. That's our job, is to make sure our government is in line. We have a lot of people in our population that can vote that don't.
All right. Well, so Patrick, you got any final thoughts on the Second Amendment conversation that we've been having?
I think we should definitely at least have one veteran in schools, because we already have one office that has a police officer in it, right? So, and what's one police officer with a pistol? I don't know what other weapons he has to defend these children in that office, but I'm sure he doesn't have an AR in a cabinet in there, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing. They're definitely underarmed. The school officer for sure is, yeah. Like I said, I mean, I don't think the solution really, because look, I mean, when you really do the numbers, dude, you got to look at these numbers. It's like, we are going to literally put, like, we're going to have our kids go to prison to learn and come back home to us. You know what I mean? That's where we're headed. We're going to have brick walls because we want to make sure they're bulletproof. We're going to have, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, so what extent is this not a societal problem? Like, society's this broken. We're so broken that we feel like we're going to, and I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you, Patrick, in the right now, right? Because that's what I'm saying. I think that's what you were even saying is, like, this is something that could be implemented in fucking 12 hours.
Yes.
Like, by next week, every school in this country could probably have 4 or 5 veterans who, in their own neighborhood, or kids go to that school, alternate daily if needed, or 4 or 5 of them hang out every day, right? Basically at the ready, or paying attention to things that the other officers and such not can't do. They're not there to police drugs and fights and other shit. They're just there to solely make sure that some asshole doesn't decide to walk into the school with a machine gun or 50 guns and start shooting.
Totally,
the place up.
but not even just that, but to protect them against the police brutality, because we know we've had officers in there that have gone beyond their means to control students.
Right, and there again, I think honestly, if we react to, we are trying to solve a problem that is upstream, and we're not any conversation I've heard from any politician has been an upstream conversation. How do we stop them from being this way? How do we stop our society from trying to murder each other? Why? Why are we killing each other? We're not helping each other. We're not doing anything. You know why? We started that, but now that would be a whole nother podcast, because the economy is the answer. Because if you're fucking poor, the crime rate in poor areas is 100 times more than it is in high fucking dollar areas. If you're rich and educated completely and fully, you don't commit crimes because you can do it through the legal system.
Right.
So you don't have to sell drugs. You can sell lamps, right? And then in the ghetto, you don't understand that you can sell lamps, but you see drugs everywhere, so you sell them. And now you're in prison, and now there's a compounding issue. And instead of trying to fix that section, it's let's take away the guns because that's the problem. Then we take away the guns, and some other shit is the problem.
Yeah, it becomes knives like we have seen in other countries.
Or it becomes another country.
Yeah, like so.
I mean, another country comes over here and decides, well, they don't got no guns no more. Let's fuck them up.
All right, well, shoot. I hope you guys love this episode today. Tell us your comments and what you think down at the in the bottom in the comment section, guys. And well, Patrick, glad to have you on, man. And until next time.
Until we broke it down, all of the walls. never back down. Fighting for justice in every town. We'll make our voices heard, loud and clear. We'll let them know that we won't live in fear. We'll march on the streets, we'll take the fight. To those who seek to dim our light, we'll stand as one and never fall until we've broken down all of the walls.